A decorated U.S. Army veteran who self-deported from Hawaii to Seoul last summer due to his criminal record is continuing his legal fight to return to the U.S. Purple Heart recipient Sae Joon Park lost his green card because of decades-old drug and bail jumping convictions in Queens, New York, and was asked to leave the U.S. by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Park's attorneys are requesting a full pardon from New York Governor Kathy Hochul in consideration of Park's military service and subsequent rehabilitation.
If Governor Hochul decides to grant a pardon to Mr. Park for the bail jumping conviction, what we can do then is we can go to the immigration court, request a reopening of his immigration case. If the court decides to grant a reopening, we can then request the deportation order to be vacated.
That would open the door for Park to have his green card restored. Attorneys are also waiting on a response from the Queens District Attorney's Office on an earlier request to lower Park's felony to a misdemeanor.